Shalom, Erev Tov, good evening from Jerusalem, Israel. This is Mr. Lowell Joseph Gallen, founder of the Root and Branch Association Limited, established in the United States of God of Israel, bless America in 1981 in New York State, and now celebrating our 42nd year. Today is Thursday, January 12th, 2023 in the Gregorian calendar, and the 20th day of the 10th Israelite Hebrew month of Tevet in the Hebrew Israelite calendar year 5783. Welcome to episode 54 of our now monthly Root and Branch Association Erev Rav and Amalek seminar, subtitled Their Nature and Methods. This is part of our ongoing Jerusalem war crimes series. There are several of the seminars because we're dealing with war crimes in Israel and worldwide. Now, without further ado, let me hand over the mic to our host, the chairman, Rabbi Hanania Weitzman, and his special guests for this program. I'm going to do this in alphabetical order. Mr. Aaron Abadi of Lakewood, New Jersey, and Mr. Uriel Ben Mordechai of Jerusalem, Israel, and Mr. Scott Mantel of Long Island. Gentlemen, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Lowell. Welcome to the program, everybody who is watching, and especially to our three special guests. Uriel, I'd like to start with you because you're kind of the linchpin. You're the glue that ties all of our guests together tonight. You've been advising them on legal cases that they're bringing against government in different countries. And I'd like to start with your recent case against the government of Israel and their mask mandates. Could you give us the very short version of what that was all about and what was the ultimate outcome of that case?
Okay. First of all, it's Aaron who's the linchpin, not me. He's
all right.
He's the brains behind the operation.
Aaron is welcome to jump in at any time.
Okay. All right. So many of you may know that during the fake-demic, one of the things that a lot of people were getting is all these mask tickets and mask violations, and they're still fighting them. People tend to ignore these things, and then they call me in a panic after about a year, and the police are threatening to throw them in jail or fine them thousands of shekels. And I tried to help out where I can, but most people, they don't understand that when you get a mask ticket or any kind of violation, you have to deal with it. You have to go to court, you have to fight it, or you have to pay. And we kind of figured, my wife and I kind of figured, well, what's the big deal? If we're not getting mass tickets, we know that we're exempt under the law, and we don't have to really worry about it. Until one day in February last year, we wandered into our ear, nose, and throat doctor, and for a checkup. Actually, my wife Adia was having some had an ear infection. I was doing a regular checkup, and sure enough, right there, like we had seen in many other health clinics throughout Israel, the doctors are all demanding that everyone wear a mask. Now, it seems a little bit strange that an ear, nose, and throat doctor, that you go in for a checkup, he's going to ask you to put on a mask during the examination. It's like, what? How are you going to check my ear, nose, and throat with a mask on? But he did it anyway. We objected, and we said we can't wear a mask. We're exempt under the situation, and he refused to treat us. I won't go into all the details, but we called the police to the scene. They tried to talk him out of his idea that he didn't have to give medical treatment to us. My wife needed it more than I do. I did at the time. She was having, like I said, an ear infection. So the police said, look, all you can do is file a complaint against him with the health fund, the HMO. And we said, no, that's not going to do any good. So we sued him. We sued him in small claims court for discrimination against the disabled. And finally, we got our day in court with a judge that was and he was only sitting on the bench at that time for like 3 or 4 months, and he used to be a defense attorney. So he the judge decided to play the defense attorney for the defendant in this case. We're the plaintiffs and he's the defendant. And the judge, completely being, I guess, a left-wing liberal Hellenist, who knows what, decided to give a judgment in favor of the defendant, saying, no, your mask exemptions are meaningless. They have no weight, no value. If you want a real mask exemption, you need to go to the government, and you have to, he couldn't tell us where to go to the government, but he said, you have to go to the government, and you have to get an official looking stamped,
Now, let me just jump in and say that you weren't simply saying that you were exempt, even though actually, according to the law in Israel, that was all you really needed to do. But you had a doctor's note stating that due to physical reasons,
we
you were
both
exempt.
had both of our family physicians, and we have two separate family physicians in our case. Both of them had given us written authorization that we were exempt from mask wearing for various medical reasons, given our medical history. And my family physician happens to be the head physician in the biggest branch in Jerusalem, called the Agrippa's branch of Maccabi. And he was the one that wrote my note. The doctor refused to recognize it. The judge refused to acknowledge it. He in the end, he gave us a judgment. In fact, he had the judgment ready and waiting to go, pretty much. He was, it didn't take long for him to make his judgment. He fined us as the plaintiffs in the case 500 shekel that we had to pay. 500 shekel is what? Maybe $130, $140, something like that. That we would have to pay the good doctor for rewarding him for not refusing to medically treat us because we couldn't wear a mask and we had the exemptions. So we decided that we were going to start a campaign to raise some funds, and we were going to appeal this to the next higher court in Israel, which is called the Mechozi, or district court in Israel. So we did. Now, here in Israel, when you go to a higher court, you have to ask permission, just like elsewhere in many other courts throughout the world. You have to ask permission for the case to be heard. And you will either get back an answer, yes, we will hear the case, or no, we won't. In our case, we got an answer back very quickly. No, we're not going to hear the story, even though we actually took a lawyer to a very good attorney, an observant woman named Rita Price, who had won cases before in the mask arena. Even herself won a case, and she went and wrote an incredible brief. I mean, really, really good brief in Hebrew, explaining all the laws and what the Knesset had decided, and how no one in Israel has the right to ask you for medical documentation. It's enough that you say ani patur, ani patura for a woman. You are exempt. You don't need to give any medical documentation. You don't have to display it. You can simply say those words, and by law, in the Israel body of law of the Knesset, in the Public Health Act from 1940, which they tacked on during the Corona days, you are allowed to say nothing more, and simply they have to make allowance for you. They have to either give you another doctor or treat you elsewhere, or do whatever is necessary. This is the law. Nevertheless, the Mechozi, or district court, said, no, we're not going to hear it. This already tells you that when this was heard, I guess we were heard at sometime in June, I believe it was, or July, I can't remember, or maybe August, I can't remember. When we were actually heard, there were so many cases in the courts that the courts were just saying, we don't want to hear it anymore. We're not interested. If it's Corona related, if it's about a mask, if it's about a violation for not wearing, if it's about getting a green pass and not being let into a restaurant, we don't want to deal with it. We're the court. We get to decide who we are going to listen to and what cases we're going to take. They simply ejected the case. And so we decided at that point, myself and my wife, that listen, tzedek tzedek tirdof, leman tichyu va'aretz. We have to pursue justice in order to live here. That's one of our mandates given in the Torah. We said we have to take it to the top. We have to. There's only one stop left, and that's the Supreme Court called Bagatz, Beit Mishpat Gvoha, and we have to take it to the top. Even if it's for nothing more than to say to my grandchildren or whoever, we went to the top. We knew that the chances, and I even spoke with you, Hanania, we knew the chances are less than 1% that we would even be able to be heard. But we had to go because that's the last stop. It's not right to run the race and get within 50 meters of the finish line and turn around and go home. So we decided, we collected enough money to pay for the filing fee and for the down payment that you have to give the court in case the case is heard. And we did it. We did this, I think, right around December 19 or something like this last year. And we got, it was a tremendous, I have to tell you, it was a wonderful high for me to be able to go and stand and file in the Supreme Court of the State of Israel. Not many people get to do that. We went the whole distance and we filed, and I was very, very pleased that we had done it. And I was proud to be amongst the people that have tried. And within 24 hours, and again, our attorney wrote an incredible brief, absolutely delicious brief in Hebrew. It outlined all of the laws, everything, how this wasn't about us. It was about all of Israel and all the people that are disabled that cannot safely wear a mask. I mean, thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people are being chased out of medical clinics across the country because they can't wear a mask. Yeah, and most people don't report it. They'll just wear the mask, or they give way, even though it's illegal what they're doing, and it breaks all of the laws of discrimination and everything else. So again, Rita helped us write an incredible brief. Within 24 hours, the court comes back, the single judge comes back and says, no, this is not a matter of public interest. Wow. This is not a matter of public interest. The public doesn't care. We're not hearing it. And that was the end. That was the end. We got our money back, most of the money back, except for the filing fee. And that's it. We did it. But you're inside your spirit, you're saying to yourself, you're angry on the one hand, but as you would say, you can't expect justice. You're not going to get justice from a pear or an apple,
Yeah. So let me ask you one question, and then I want to turn to our other guests as well. Tell me one major thing that you learned from this whole experience, and maybe you didn't know beforehand, or you didn't realize as much, and now it's crystal clear to you that you learned from going through this whole legal farce.
How incredibly easy it is to file a lawsuit.
That's not the answer that I was expecting. I have to be honest.
And take it to the top. Most people are intimidated. They don't want to fight for justice because they think that Netanyahu is going to send out his goons and lock you up in prison and you'll never be heard from again. I don't know what answer you're looking for, but what I learned was you keep fighting. Did Israel give up when they lost battles in 1948? Did the Am Yisrael ever stop fighting because they lost a battle with the Romans or with the Byzantines or with the Greeks or whatever? No, that's what I learned. It's hard to suffer a loss. It's hard not to win. I had dreams about winning and how I'd be parading down the street and calling the doctor and taunting him, But in the end, we paid the doctor 500 shekels, and that was the end of it. What did you want me to tell you?
I don't know. I thought you'd tell me that you thought that maybe there was a glimmer of hope that the legal system would in fact be a just system. And now you see there's no hope whatsoever. That's the answer that I was expecting.
No, and you wait till you talk to Aaron. Go to Aaron next,
Aaron,
and then go to
you're on. I've never met you. We haven't spoken. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what story you have for us tonight?
Okay. Yeah, I was very interested in speaking up now. Well, my background is I'm actually a trained rabbi, so I understand how to study the law. So I grew up in Lakewood. I live in Manhattan. I'm a businessman. I had a lot of problems from COVID. My business is out of business because I couldn't do anything because I couldn't travel. I'm in waste management, and I'm doing projects in India. It's coming back now, but I had 2 years I couldn't get on a plane, so I started suing everybody. And being a pro se plaintiff, and I'm learning the game, and it's amazing. And what I found, well, let me tell you first a little bit about who I'm suing and what. I'm suing NYU Langone. They have 500 locations in New York City, medical hospitals. They were not letting me in. So I could come to an emergency room and they refused to let me in because I cannot wear a mask. I have sensory processing disorder, which is what typically an autistic kid would have. I can't wear glasses. I can't wear a baseball cap. I can't wear anything on my face, my head. I have a doctor's letter. I have 3 doctor's letters for it. From NYU Langone. They refused to let me in. They had the police take me out one time. I just kept going. I kept documenting. And now that I sued them, they're actually letting me in. There's a whole process, but I have, in that particular case, I'm getting a little bit of help. You know, they're cooperating finally. I could not go on airlines. I'm in the middle of preparing a lawsuit against 49 airlines. I filed complaints against 49 or 50 airlines. There's only 70 that travel to the United States. So 50 of them told me very clearly, no, you cannot come on the plane. Now the law is clear. The law is clear. I am disabled and they're required to allow me on. They're without a mask. Now, if they can show that I am a direct threat to the other passengers or to myself, then they can deny me access. But has to be an individual evaluation by law. In order to do that individual evaluation, they have to look at me, and I already had COVID in October of 2020. So I was much less of a risk to any other person on the plane than someone with a mask who did not have COVID. So there's no way they can get past it. The Department of Transportation, I sent them 50 complaints. They finally respond a year later. A lot of them, they agree it's in violation, but they're not going to do anything about it. So I went from court to court. I've been in front of the Supreme Court 4 times. They didn't accept my case, but that's normal because they only accept 1.5% of cases. So that's normal. But I've been by the circuit court fighting the Department of Transportation, trying to say, hey, you're oversee. The circuit court is the Circuit Court of Appeals is the federal, is 1 step below the Supreme Court. They're the responsible ones over a federal agency like the Department of Transportation. So I come to them and I file a complaint and I say, you have to, a petition. I say, you have to make DOT enforce it. I can't get on a plane. You have to go and require them to enforce the law. So they say, we don't have that power. But then everyone who tries to get a private action to sue the airlines say, and the circuit court says, you can't have a private action. You have to go to DOT. So the Department of Transportation is the only one who can enforce it, and they refuse to enforce it. I sued.
We have that in writing.
Yes, and I'm still going. I'm not giving up. I sued in human rights commissions in 7 or 8 states.
You sued Disneyland.
I sued. I'm in the middle of 2. I have a human rights claim against them, and and everyone is fighting back. It's some kind of crazy, distorted. In other words, you're taking a person, right? Try to imagine what's happening. You're taking a person with a wheelchair and you're saying you cannot come on this plane with your wheelchair, or you can't come into my store with your wheelchair. You know what some of the judges were saying? It's not even discrimination, because everyone has to wear a mask. It's not just you with a disability. Everyone has to wear a mask.
And everyone really can't, because it's harmful to everybody and it doesn't stop the spread of any
That's
illnesses.
true.
That's all.
That's
you know,
true,
nonsense.
but that's the most absurd
So we're even
thing.
playing their game, like we're using their language and we're playing their game and we're acting as if, you know, you are really a threat to yourself or other people, and as if the mask would really do something when it's all
Correct.
fantasy anyway.
Correct. And I've been filing that in every complaint that I write. I put in there that the entire mask thing is absurd, because I did the research originally before they took off, you know, the internet. They try to hide a lot of the studies. All the studies that were done for masks were done prior to COVID, and all the studies, I think I have 65 of them, real studies from A to Z with real data. Every single one of them shows that the mask doesn't do anything. It's useless. So even if you say it has some kind of value, you can't keep someone off of a plane or out of a store. They're throwing me out of stores and out of hospitals. Insane. Based on what? I have a medical disability, and by law, you can't do that. But a lot of the judges, there's like a distortion in their head where they're like, you know, that crazy COVID, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just some kind of crazy thing where you're going to go without a mask, you're going to kill all the people. You can't.
If I had to venture an educated guess after all this time, it would be that they were given very clear in instructions. This is the outcome, and then you figure out after the fact how to justify the outcome. But this is what the outcome must be. It has nothing to do with the law or science or reason. It's just, this is what you have to rule, and now you figure it out.
Right.
Could be. I think the judges in the circuit court, they're the ones that you usually end up in the Supreme Court. So they're a lot smarter and a lot more learned in the law. And I'm hoping every case gradually, as they get to the circuit court, it's like a year process before it gets there. I just have a case against Target. And in many cases, like in mediation, the mediator is yelling at me and saying, why are you being so strong about it? Why don't you just negotiate? I'm saying, you're going to for sure lose the case in the district court, he's saying. So I say, I want to lose the case in the district court because I need to go to the circuit court where they can actually make a real decision here. And I finally have that first chance of a real case in front of the circuit court. It's the Third Circuit. It's I sued Target in Pennsylvania. I came into the Target with my girlfriend. We walked around the Target. Right when I walked in, they gave me a hard time. I told them the law. I have always carried the letter in my pocket, even though by law I shouldn't have to. But COVID fear, I figured I carried the letter in my pocket. They followed me around the store, 7 or 8 guys, a whole scene.
That's why they call it Target, because they slapped a target on you.
They chased me out of the store. They wouldn't let my girlfriend buy anything until I left. So I sued them in the court. The judge was a Trump appointee. So I thought, oh, yay, we're doing good. Nothing doing. He threw out the entire case, which was great because I guess his main complaint was the store's allowed to do it for safety reasons. So he obviously didn't read the law. So now I can go to the circuit court and I could do it. It just happened 2 days ago. Thank God. I can go now to the circuit court. I can show them very clearly the law and and by right, I go to circuit court. They can't turn me away and give them an opportunity to correct the law. If they do the right thing, this will help all the cases for everybody in the country.
Okay, so let me ask you and Uriel a question, and then I want to get to Scott, who's been waiting very patiently. This is for both of you, because you both said very clearly that you have found, and it wasn't what you were expecting, that the process of engaging in all these lawsuits is much easier than we tend to believe. And yet it sounds from your stories very onerous, very time-consuming, very expensive. It sounds like a full-time job and then some to file all these lawsuits. So which is it? It sounds like you're really very busy running from court to court and filing to filing, and you have to pay along the way. It's not free. So how do you reconcile that? You're claiming it's very easy, that anybody can do it, listening to you, this doesn't sound like something I'm ready to do, even though in principle it might be a good thing.
Well, for me, I actually enjoy it. It's very similar to my learning Torah. It's very similar. There's a lot of very similarities. I had a lot of training, learning halacha. I'm actually enjoying it. I'm enjoying it because whether I win or lose, I win. The mediator recently told me that if the other side files a motion to dismiss, it costs him $200,000
with his lawyers.
Yeah. So if they want to spend, and when I take them through a case from the beginning to the end, including the circuit court, and then I go to Supreme Court, and I'm not going to stop. Every case is going to go that way. When I take them to the end, it has to cost them $500,000 to $1 million. And if they want to do that and they want to play that game, I'll do that. And even if they win, I win. And they'll never do this again. And that's the only way. In other words, if I saw 100 people making these lawsuits, I'd back off and relax and go back to my thing. But I see very few people making it. And the few of us that are making it, we're actually in touch with each other a lot. If people don't, it's unfortunate. Most people with a disability, they just stayed at home. They had no choice. They just stayed at home. They were afraid to go out. You have no idea what it felt like. Everywhere, my daughter was in Israel in school. She came back. So it must have been 6 months of this craziness that I was going through. I picked her up from the airport. I said, come with me to Dunkin' Donuts. I want to show you what I'm going through. We walk into Dunkin' Donuts, and I don't know. I never went into that store before. We walk in, go through the whole ordeal. I show them the letter that, no, you have to leave. They throw me out of the store. They won't give my daughter anything until I leave. She couldn't believe her eyes. Every day I walked around the store, every time I walked into the store, but I'm a push, I'm not gonna stop. So I kept going into the store, but it was torture. Every single day, wherever you went, every store, and pure insanity. Like there's no rational component to it. So if I went through that, you can only imagine a poor autistic child. That so many people have this similar disabilities, and it doesn't have to be exactly the same. People get anxiety from MS. People have breathing issues from the MS. There's a million reasons why. And so many people just either didn't fly, they didn't go, they couldn't do it. And that's a horrible thing to do to human beings. That's a horrible thing to do. They make the laws for a reason.
Sure.
The laws are aggressive. So if I don't fight this, if we don't fight this, the few of us, it'll never have stopped. It'll never stop, and it's going to happen again. We're going to have,
And it is happening again.
Yeah,
It's going to happen
they're pushing
again.
polio now and other things. Yeah, they don't plan on stopping.
In Bangalore, India, I do business in Bangalore, India. They treated me wonderfully because of my letter. That's it. They left me alone. They don't have this distortion. But they just reopened the mask law just a few weeks ago. They reopened the mask law. They're doing it in a lot of countries. They're going to do it here in the US. HHS already put out guidelines that they're recommending it. So this is just the beginning.
Yeah, they're starting again. Look, Aaron, you work in waste management. I really hope you have the opportunity to take out the trash because there's a lot of it. There's a lot of human trash.
I only want to add before you bring on Scott,
Yeah.
just hang on 1 second. I just want to add, we all know, as far as the justice system is concerned, how much justice can you afford, Mr. Jones? Okay. And that's because people have to think that they have to hire attorneys. We're here to tell you, all three of us, you don't need an attorney. Okay. You can go pro se. There's this illusion that you have to go in with a fancy attorney and pay him $800 an hour. You can, and the courts realize that a pro se is not a graduate of a law school. And so your caliber, your briefs don't have to be written like you're a graduate of law school, number one. Number two, yes, it does take time, but you get better at it, and we collaborate together to write better briefs and more concisely and in the manner that describes who we are. And keep in mind, the judges are human beings. They would not know that society is having trouble with these masks unless people bring these ideas before them, and they have to sit for months and months. I'm on a lawsuit that we filed a year ago in California federal court, and our judge is still sitting on this lawsuit of $8.5 million against 8 airlines and the CDC and the HHS. And we don't know when we're going to get a decision, but we will eventually. We're suing the TSA. We don't know when we're going to get an answer from the government, from the circuit court in DC on the TSA. But like Aaron said, we're putting them through the paces. We're making life hell for them. And the next time they want to introduce a mask law, they're going to think twice. That's what we're all about.
I hope that's true. Honestly, I'm a little skeptical that they're going to think twice and that you're really putting the right people through hell, but we'll see. I mean, it's certainly a noble effort on your part, and that's the best that we're able to do. Scott, I want to turn to you now. We've had you on the program a couple of times. You shared with us the horrible story of your wife being murdered in the hospital, with a story that unfortunately we've heard variations of that from many people over the last few years, how she was given first no treatments and the wrong treatments, and then she was basically held hostage in the hospital. It's a terrible story, and I encourage everybody to go listen to the previous programs. I'll put links to it. The last time we had you on, I asked you where things stood, and you said that you were having difficulty finding a lawyer who was willing to take the case, that you wanted to sue the hospital and all those responsible for your wife's death, but you were unable to find a lawyer because you didn't feel that there was any possibility of getting justice, even though it should be a slam dunk case. So I want to ask you now, has there been any progress? And in working with Uriel, have you been able to get the ball rolling without a lawyer?
Yeah. So first, thanks for having me back on and giving me an opportunity to share information. Because we all need a platform to get this word out. There is a fight going on. I think between myself and Aaron and Uriel, we probably, I'd say easily I've spoken to over 24 attorneys over the last year or so. And, my experience with that has been, first of all, I think, as Uriel might have even touched on this, this topic with COVID is, it's a toxic subject. And I think there's a lot of fear involved with attorneys even touching these type of cases, whether it's masks, vaccines, whatever. As long as it's COVID related, I think there's a real hesitancy, as we have seen doctors, attorneys have lost licenses over this. So I think that's one factor. I think the other factor that I've heard several times is there aren't many attorneys. I haven't met one that's really interested in justice. I think it's all comes down to a business transaction, which is not excusable. I understand people are running a business, but if it's not a clear-cut win to the finish line, these attorneys are just not interested. And and I think my mentality was that of, boy, I mean, this isn't a small claims case, where I could go and figure this out myself. This is a daunting task. So filing pro se never even entered my mind, to be honest with you, until, it's funny how God works and puts people in your path. And I think just by, in turn, being on your show, and one thing led to another, and I was led to Uriel and then Aaron, and I shared my story with them, and and I think Uriel had said it just like he said before. He said, "Scott, you do not need an attorney. You do not need an attorney." And it's funny because I've my experience over the past several years has been, I'll take the media, for example. I pretty much shut my TV off. I cannot even accept any news as real news. I think it has been all propaganda. So what where do I look? I start looking for alternative sources of information. And what is wonderful is around the world, in this country, around the world, there have been these people who are just become citizen journalists. You know, they have no background in journalism, and they figured out a way to research and document, you know, real information and put it out there. Unfortunately, a lot of it has gotten censored through these big tech platforms. But you know, thankfully, you know, that's starting to turn around a little bit. But then when Uriel had mentioned, you know, you don't need an attorney. You know, you could file pro se. Do not be intimidated.
And we'll
Yeah,
help you. We'll help you do it.
I started thinking about all these people that were going against the system and doing research and real journalism that had no background, and they've learned on their own how to do it. I remember being in the hospital, and I don't think my wife would have made it as long as she did if I wasn't there every day, because I started having to learn about medicine and reading charts, because no one else seemed to really care what was going on. Just another person that's very sick probably won't make it, and that's the end of that. So I think after I had this initial conversation, you know, for the first time in over a year, I felt empowered. I felt like, you know what, this isn't a hopeless situation. I'm not intimidated. I'm not sleepwalking. You know, there are many people who just don't see what's going on with this mass media propaganda. And then there are those who may start questioning things now that they're starting to see things, but they don't really think, you know, this isn't going to affect me personally. You know, you can choose to believe that nothing will ever change. You know, you know, we have a choice to make. We can either quit or we can fight, you know, and I can't look myself in the mirror for the rest of my life knowing that I didn't fight till the very end and exhaust all my remedies that are available to me. That is what I am supposed to do. And it's like Uriel and Aaron, you know, they're one of the few that are taking on the system as citizens, not qualified attorneys. But you know what? It doesn't matter. We have to dig in, and we have to stand up and rise up. And that's the only way that we're going to break this system. And, you know, I know my odds here are, you know, less than 1%. And it doesn't intimidate me. It doesn't overwhelm me. I am beyond grateful that there are individuals in this world that care enough, that are willing to assist me and my family in trying to bring a fight, which, you know, is an amazing thing. And
Aaron and Scott, let's give them the good news, okay? Because Hananya, you mentioned this about the money. When it comes down to what it costs, okay, Aaron will tell you, here in Israel, for me to go to the Supreme Court of the state of Israel cost about $300.
Wow.
That's it. Aside from what I would pay my attorney to write a brief, okay? When you go pro se in the United States, if you want to file a petition for review in a circuit court, it costs $400, what is it, Aaron? $500 or $400, $402 or something, right?
There's a million ways to save money, and we work on this, and a lot of us are helping each other. We're passing around Word documents for our complaints. So the other guy takes it, you know, changes it to fit their complaint, but saves a lot of time. I did the same thing. I go online, I find cases, and I copy the cases, and then I change it to fit my thing. If you can get it, if you have to print paper, that can cost you 20 cents a sheet. If you're printing you know, it could be 1,000 pages just from one case. It adds up. The money adds up, and then you're shipping it, right? So that's another $10, $12.
File electronically.
So you figure out how to go online. You figure out how to, you file a motion. I want to have a, in some courts, they let you online, no problem. Some courts say if you're not represented by an attorney, you cannot go online. So then you file a motion asking permission from the judge to let you go online. If you go online, usually you don't have to send any papers. And then there's another trick, because you also have to pay for process service. But if you send their attorney a letter requesting a waiver, and they don't pay and they don't sign a waiver of service, then the judge will force them to pay what you paid for the process server, which will be $75 approximately. There's a lot of tricks. We're all helping each other. Anyone wants to reach out to us, it's not a problem. We'll be glad to help them.
So let me ask all three of you the following question. This is something I spoke about with Uriel privately as well, because I have mixed feelings about the whole thing. On the one hand, I want to encourage everybody to use all the tools that we have, and they're very limited tools, to fight back against the system. We have to fight every way that we can. We have to help each other do everything possible. And I think it's amazing that you guys are going through the effort to do this, and you're not giving up hope. You're doing everything that you can. On the other hand, I think we all recognize that the system is fixed against us, and we're not dealing with a fair system. The laws are not being enforced properly. The laws are not being interpreted properly. And the judges, by and large, are not fair. They don't know the law, or they don't care. They're being given instructions from on high that this is what the deal must be. So knowing that the process is fixed against you, first of all, what is the real likelihood of achieving anything? And second of all, if you reach a dead end, at some point, the court throws out your case, says, they make up some excuse and they're not going to rule in your favor, what option does that really leave us?
Well, I'd like to speak to that, because I had a similar feeling when my wife was in the hospital, and I had to sue the hospital 3 times. And based on what I saw in that hospital, I thought I really had no chance. It was just throwing into the wind. And you know what? We came across a judge that was very compassionate, very understanding, and saw the reality of our situation and ruled in our favor. So I don't go in with a preconceived notion that every judge is, corrupt or slanted one way or the other with their leanings politically. I just hope and pray that we're responsible for the efforts, not the outcome. That's the reality in life about everything. And it's like I said before, I know I need to make an effort. And I'm not going to be responsible for the outcome.
Let me add something to that. I agree 100%. The way it works is you win some, you lose some. I'm telling you about the losses, but I had an appeal. I filed a claim against Disney because Disney didn't want to let me in to come to Disney. I wanted to come with my family like we do every year. So I filed a complaint with the Commission on Human Rights. They threw it out. They said, you didn't come to Disney. You're sitting in New York. I don't see any discrimination. So I had to go to the appellate court, the Court of Appeals in Florida. And I went through the whole process, and they overturned it. And they said there's no such requirement for him to come to get discriminated against. If they sent him an email saying he can't come, that's discrimination. So they put it back to the commission, and the commission had to go redo it. And then the commission again, another 6 months later, threw it out. And now we're going to administrative court. But I'm going to take it to the end of the road. What happens is like this. There's a lot of bias, like you're saying. There's a lot of bias. The judges still have to follow the law. So the game that they play is they use technicalities, they use other things to get out of, to weasel themselves out of that corner. Because technically it's an open and shut case. There's a man here being discriminated against, and you have to protect him based on the law. It's an open and shut case. They hate pro se litigants, and they even hate more than that people who are filing a complaint against disability. I think they think it's like taking advantage of the system. It's insane. It doesn't make any sense, but that's the fact. But ultimately, the law will, in other words, that's why I like going higher up to the higher up courts. You get to the Supreme Courts in the states, you get to the circuit courts, the federal circuit courts of appeals. They have to follow the law much more. And I believe we will get places, and I'm have to keep fighting. Let me give you one more example, which was fascinating to me. And I don't know where this is going to go. I filed a complaint against Caesar hotels, Caesar casinos, because I get free rooms there. It's a whole long story. So when I travel to Utah, I go to Vegas, I stay free for a few nights. I'm not much of a gambler, but I enjoy that, and I get free nights. They refuse to let me in. They send me letter no. So I sue them in the court. The court throws it out. The court throws the case out. So I go to the circuit court, the Ninth Circuit, which is known to be a rough circuit for something like this. The Ninth Circuit throws it out, but they give me almost like a form letter saying we reviewed the case. They don't let me do the case. They don't let me do the brief. We reviewed the case and we decided that it's frivolous. So I somehow it hit me in the head. This doesn't look like they read my case. This looks like a form letter. So I blocked all that information, right? The words that they used, and I did a search online, and I found 300 cases like that where they used the exact same words. So it's a form letter within the Ninth Circuit. So I filed a motion for reconsideration, and I showed them that 300 cases, and I listed 100 of them or something like that. And I said, and there's more, there's a few hundred cases where since 2017, you started sending out these form letters, and only to pro se plaintiffs, only to people that don't have lawyers. So you are discriminating against people without lawyers.
Wow.
Then I filed see, these people are starting with the wrong guy. Then I filed a judicial council complaint against the judges, the 3 judges. I just received a confirmation that they received it and that the judges get a copy of it. So now they have both things sitting in front of their plate. And in that judicial council complaint, the head of the judicial council is the chief judge of the circuit. In that complaint, I wrote, and you, Your Honor, because I directed to the chief judge, and you, Your Honor, are listed on many of those same cases.
Oh, geez.
So we'll see what they do. I mean, if they throw it out, then then I will go to the Supreme Court, and this is something the Supreme Court might look at, because this is pretty solid evidence. It's solid evidence of discrimination.
I also hope that you go public with this. Obviously, you're doing it on this program, but to put it all together, maybe write a short article, send me the information. I'd be happy to share that. This is something that people should be aware of. I think shaming them, if this is public knowledge, it might lead to some sort of an outcry, and that could help move things in the right direction.
Right.
The other thing is we're one of millions of people in these situations. So the thing is, if everybody rises up, see, it just starts to take one person, right, to say, you know what, I've had enough. I'm going to fight back. And if millions are fighting the same fight, there's way more of us than there are of them. And that's what's needed in this planet.
And that's the whole point. I mean, Hananya, you and I, we're going to get together next Thursday, and we're going to take our baseball bats and we're going to go do something else. But aside from that, there is no loss. That's what we're trying to get across. No, we don't. Yes, we lose in the courts, but that doesn't make us losers, because that's going to help somebody down the road. Our briefs are on record. They're part of the public record. People can look at those. People can look them up. They get onto Westlaw. They get onto the major search engines. People can see what we've done. Decisions are being made. Each time we go forward, we break down a little barrier, a little more of a barrier, and something else opens up for someone else down the road. So it's not just, about me and about my loss. It's about us together, and exactly what Scott said. We're breaking through the path, and they can't deal with all of us. And it doesn't take many wins to get an avalanche started. All it takes is a good explosion. Look what happened to the mask mandate on April 18th last year. One case in Florida,
Right.
one single case in Florida, in the Florida District Court by Judge Mizell, a district court judge struck down the mask mandate for the entire world because of one plaintiff, the Health and Defense Fund. One case struck down with one judge, struck down the mask mandate for the entire world to this day.
I filed a lawsuit against New York City for the vaccine requirement, the mandate. And I'm fighting now, it's a year and a half, and I'm getting nowhere. And then also one case in Richmond County, in Richmond, which is Staten Island, the judge got up in the New York Supreme Court and said, this is arbitrary and capricious. He said, this is no good. And I'm still in court. Now I could go back to, even the Supreme Court didn't agree or didn't take the case. But now I'm in the Circuit Court of Appeals, Second Circuit, and now I have this judge. In my reply, I'm quoting the judge verbatim because he was just everything very clear. This is, you know, the vaccine mandate is it's absurd. It's not actually a vaccine. You can't say that certain people have to have it, certain people don't have to have it. If you're working in the Broadway, you don't have to have it. Either everyone has it or not. And how could you say that, like me, who had COVID, should have to get a vaccine? The COVID is better than the vaccine. Having natural immunity is better. So he said it's all arbitrary, and he threw it out. Now, I'm sure that's going to be in an appeal, but now suddenly they have to look at it. And my first appeal that I sent to them 6 months earlier, they threw it out and they said, lacking any arguable something. And so it was similar to the Ninth Circuit, except I couldn't find them doing it to everybody. So they just did it to me. So now in my appeal, I'm cursing out their own, not cursing out, I'm disputing, I'm criticizing their own. Last time when I came to you, you threw it out and you said it's lacking any arguable case here. But since then, the Supreme Court took a case. They don't take cases that are frivolous. This other judge obviously didn't think it was frivolous because he ruled like me. So how could you say lacking any arguable thing? Sit down, read the case, respond. They don't want to do that because I'm pro se, but I'm not going away. So we're going to keep fighting. And in that case, again, we have a judge that for not only denied the vaccine mandate, but forced them to rehire everyone that they fired in that, I think it was the Department of Sanitation,
Right.
and give them back pay all the way from the beginning. So, and the reason why it sticks is because the law is so clear, like us. So the people that are trying to stop it, they're using little tricks. You know, the legal system is full of tricks. I lost the case because I didn't write a few words on the document. I lost the case. You know what I mean? I gave up on that particular one. It was against Apple. I have another case against Apple. But the only trick that they can use is play games. Because if they write the law, like the Target guy writes, you know, the judge again wrote it for the Target case. If they write the law clearly that it's wrong, then I can go to the court above them, the circuit court, the appeals court, and have them overturn it because they have to follow the law. So it's really, we have to just keep pushing until they have no choice, and also to keep it exposed constantly in the public eye. There are not a lot of people that have this strange disability where you totally can't wear a mask. You know, it's uncomfortable, it's unpleasant, it's unhealthy, no question about it. But most people could put it on, they could fake it, they could drink their coffee. I cannot, you know, it's a small amount. I know because when I went into the supermarkets and I went into the Walmarts and I went into the stores, I never saw another person walking around without him. At one time I saw another person. So I know it's a
You know what?
And a lot of us, we would have overran them a long time ago. But I'm not going to stop until this is addressed properly by a real court there's an official precedent, an official case law that says, then the other courts will back off. They have no choice. Once this
Right.
case law in a circuit court, they will back off. They will start to treat it a little differently.
Yeah, so they're talking about losing cases. The way I look at it now is I've lost everything you could possibly lose. I lost my wife, my best friend. I lost the mother to my children. My children lost their mother, and there is no more losing. And
only winning.
yeah, there might be setbacks, and the war goes on. You lose battles, and unfortunately, it feels like we're in a war. It's kind of a silent war, and you're not going to win every battle. And unfortunately, as my family has suffered, there are casualties in this war. And the one thing I'm not going to lose is my dignity. And I'm not going to let my kids see their father do nothing about this, and that's an important lesson, if it's just that. But, and I am more than grateful, beyond grateful to have these two gentlemen put in my life that, they've been doing this for a while on their own in different venues, and they rolled up their sleeves. They're like, yeah, you know what, let's take this one on too. This doesn't intimidate us either. And it's
So we're going for
it's very uplifting, and it's very empowering, and I hope that other people do take notice, because that's the main thing. We're so interconnected in ways we have no idea. And maybe this goes nowhere. I don't know, but maybe this will help other people,
Yeah, and this is what we're going to do. We're helping Scott file a wrongful death action, not only against the hospital, but against certain other individuals. And we actually expect other people to want to join that lawsuit later, at which point we'll probably take on an attorney when an attorney sees the money that's involved in the settlement. But that, even if they don't, we're going to take it, help Scott to take it right to the top. And he has to be able to walk away with his head held high, saying he fought for justice all the way, as much as he could do it. And you don't need an attorney to do it.
Okay, so this leads me to the final question. Let's say people are watching this and they think, this sounds fun. I really appreciate your fighting spirit. I want to join forces with you guys. I want to file some pro se cases as well. What's the first step? How do people start that process?
Aaron.
I'll respond. Okay, it's very simple. You have to figure out what court. Always try to get to a federal court. So the local federal court where the case is. Go online to the website. Just take a little time and read there's the federal rules of civil procedure, FRCP, Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, which governs all federal courts. And then you go onto the website and look at the rules of the local rules. Everything's on the website. Once you understand the basics, and it'll tell you on the website how to file, how to start a case. It'll tell you if you how do you send it in? Look for an email address, or look for if you can immediately become a electronic filer, an e-filer. It's a pretty simple process, because every case starts with a complaint. So you're filing a complaint. Then you have to serve that complaint. So the court will give you a summons. So now you file the summons and the complaint and a certificate of service on the person that you're filing the complaint on. Now, you don't have to spend the money for a process server if you know where they are, and you can't serve it yourself. So you have someone else, a friend, a relative, serve it. It doesn't cost you much. You're just paying the filing fees. Once you serve the complaint, then they have to answer. And they'll probably try to do a motion to dismiss, which you get to respond to. It's a very simple process. It's almost the same in every court, and you can pick it up pretty quickly. We're glad to help you.
Okay,
There's a lot of us.
So on that note, if people want to connect with you, or maybe there's groups of people that are working together on this, how do they do that?
Uriel, you have an idea? I mean, they
Well,
can email me straight if they want. And we'll,
You know, we
we'll
have a
do it.
little WhatsApp group ourselves, just the three of us. We could invite people to that. Maybe you could, when we get done with this recording. we
Okay,
can
if people want to contact
add
me first, then I could put them in touch with you. That's fine. People
right.
who hear this and they want to
Right.
get in touch with Uriel or any of the
Right.
anybody else involved with this can get in touch with me, and then I will serve as that liaison. That's fine. Happy to do
We
that.
help each other, and we've been helping each other, and everyone, you know, who joins and helps, you know, we don't have like an official group. We're just passing around papers and advice, and you know, trying to help each other. But it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy if you're ready to take the time out.
Okay, sounds great. I want to close with one fringe benefit that sort of popped into my head along the way is if more people do the pro se approach, which clearly the courts and the lawyers don't like, the lawyers might be forced to lower their fees a little bit when they see people don't need them.
Don't hold your breath on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I have to tell you, Hananya, you know, being pro se, it really is cool. I mean, you can get away with a lot because you don't have to act like a lawyer. You don't have to be erudite and come out with $1,000 words. You can just be you. And when the court says, well, you're not supposed to do that, you go, well, I didn't know. Okay.
A lot of times when I'm looking for a specific rule, I want to know, do I have to, because they're very busy with the rules. Everything's about the rules. And I can't figure out if I'm supposed to send it this way or that way. After about 10, 15 minutes, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to send it. And they're going to send it back and say I did it wrong if I did it wrong.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
a lawyer can't do that. After a few times, they'll sanction him. His law firm will throw him out. But as a pro se, you get a lot of leeway, thank God.
Yeah, I've been going through life kind of pro se. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know the rules, and you just have to work with me because I'm doing it pro se. I don't have anybody helping me. I think it's a good motto in life. Guys, thank you very much for sharing your experience and wisdom and for being out there to help other people. I really appreciate all of this. Again, if anybody is watching this and they want to try to get their feet wet with this pro se, push back against the system, you don't have to hire a lawyer, and you want to get in touch with any of our guests, please contact me. I'll be happy to put you in touch with them, and let's get more people fighting. Everybody has something to do. If this isn't your cup of tea, there's other ways that people can fight back against the system. Everybody's got to figure out their best way of fighting back, but everybody's got to be active in some way, and we're all in this fight together.
That's right.
Okay, thank you very much, guys, and please stay in touch and give us good news, hopefully with lots of victories.
Okay,
Absolutely.
Thank you. Shabbat shalom.
thank you.
Thank you.